if you could try to just squeeze in a little bit. Some of us have voices to project, some of us don't, but in case they don't, we want everybody to hear us on this occasion, please. Our town supervisor, Paul Feiner, was gracious enough and so helpful with us to make this happen for the 50th anniversary and the celebration of WISE. So we're going to have him speak a few words about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for inviting me, and I want to thank the WISE program for doing an amazing job, because the WISE program has really changed lives. Vic, although he never held public office, accomplished more than many elected officials. So he highlighted the fact that you can be a citizen and really make a fantastic impact on people's lives. Tens of thousands of young people benefited from the WISE program. I've met so many people over the years, and they said that the WISE program changed their lives for the better. And they developed careers, they gained confidence, they gained contacts. So, you know, I really appreciate everyone who was involved, past, present, in the WISE program, and you should really be proud of yourself for making a difference in so many lives. And it's really great that the Greenburgh School District set the model for every other school district in the United States. So when people complain about the school district, it's not fair, because Greenburgh has done some things that are better than any other community in the country. Thank you.
How you doing? Good.
Hi, I'm Chris Allen. I'm a member of the Board of Education. I'm here to give apologies for our Board President Tracy Mayers and Vice President Ashley Pineda, who are very disappointed that they cannot be here today. I'd also like to express our thanks to the town of Greenburgh for helping with the signs and for being one of many, many partners in the WISE program over the years, and hopefully for a long time to come. The Board of Education fully supports the WISE program and the opportunity for experiential learning that it gives our students. And without further ado, I think it's time for our next speaker. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Jamal Thomas, also a member of the board, and to echo what Chris and Paul said, the WISE program is actually incredible. I went to Woodland a long time ago, and I went through the WISE program.
About one long.
I went through the WISE program. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of my friends also went through it. Many of them, my brother, like they're still doing the same type of work that they started in WISE years ago. So just that exposure at an early age, it means a lot. And to know that this program was born here in Greenburgh, it makes me proud to be do we say Greenburghian? I'm not sure. But once again, the program is amazing, and I thank everybody who had something to do with making this WISE way. And with no further ado, our next speaker.
We'd like to bring up Dr. Iverson, our superintendent, to speak to us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Better late than never.
Several pictures.
Good morning to everyone. Good to see you.
Good morning.
So glad to be here this morning to join this very prestigious ceremony, honoring our WISE program. Since coming on board here now 2 years, I can tell you from my heart, I've heard nothing but unsolicited testimony from everyone I've met here in the building, from administrators and teachers and former alumni I've met in the community, former partners and stakeholders. When I'm engaged in conversations with them, the WISE program is always brought up. So I know it's a program that's very dear to the community, and it's very dear to Greenburgh Central School District, and certainly it's a program we are committed to, because we know that the program is great connected to what's happening here, to the school system with the community. And this work cannot happen without you and the community. And our students are doing their individualized projects in some of your businesses. And we're so grateful to you for exposing and allowing that to happen. And we're hoping for more, because our vision is WISE for all. So that every student, before they leave us, have this great experience of having to work and be with one of you in our community on some specialized project that's of an interest to them. Because we know that the more kids are engaged in that, the better. And we know the better we work together as partners. We know the work with the community really leads to, ultimately, student success for our students. So we're so excited about today, and now to be able to commemorate a street and a tree to the WISE programs to have it etched in our hearts forever, for everyone to see as they drive in through this beautiful place. All this land is just gorgeous to me. The WISE program will forever be etched in the hearts of everyone who walks through these grounds, to see how important it is to us as a district and as a community, so we can continue this partnership and commit so all of our students participate and have this experience and be successful. Because without it, we know with it, we cannot do nothing but be successful. Without it, it will not help us at all. So we're looking to strengthen it, and we thank you so much for this. And thank you for 5 minutes to be able to share my heart, learning about you and what this program means to you, and now what it means to me and my central administration who's here as well. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Last but certainly not least, somebody who needs no introduction, Mr. Matthew Smith, who's definitely our principal and also a great supporter of WISE.
Thanks, Doc. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First of all, welcome home to the alumni that are back here. I'm the proud principal of Woodlands Middle High School. It's such a fitting sign to have WISE Way, because I believe WISE is the right way to educate our students. It's rare that you find a program that went against the norm. You know, WISE was something that was developed 50 years ago for this Golden Jubilee that went against the norm of regular secondary education. So you set this cornerstone and this foundation for a national recognized program. And I'm so proud to be the principal here. I'm so proud to have the alumni back. I'm so proud to be representing Woodlands Middle High School in something that is recognized on a national level. So thank you, welcome back. Please visit us more. We need more internships, so those that are out there doing great in the community, these are some of our students here. They're phenomenal kids, and I put them up against any kid across this nation because they're great students. So again, thank you for joining us today. Dr. Fritz, Mr. Feiner, Charlene, Congressman Jamal, and everyone else, board members, thank you for coming out today. Thank you.
I was just mentioning a couple months ago we wanted to name something for Vic, and his family didn't want that honor because they said he was basically doing things because he believed in the cause, not because he wanted public recognition. So, you know, I was thinking today, what an amazing person Vic was, because some people want buildings named after them, some people want streets named after them. What he wanted was for people to grow, have a great life, and that was his recognition. So I just think the fact that his family rejected naming something for him just speaks so highly of the type of person Vic was.
Vic was a very humble person, and you know, it's appropriate for him to sort of demonstrate that in this way. So we're forever grateful to Vic for sure. So now I think we're gonna walk down to the tree. So we'll take the same path, and in the front of the school, you'll just go to the left, and right after the building, the right.
Hi everybody. Our first speaker is Mr. John McClain.
You guys missed the best English teacher
Hello, everybody.
in the world.
I was here
Legend.
for more than half of the 50 years that we're celebrating. So they asked me to speak a little bit about what WISE has meant and continues to mean for students, for teachers, and for the philosophy of this place that gave it birth. So let me start with the fact that I came here in the mid-'80s, and it was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me as a teacher. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I inherited a program from a retiring English teacher that included duty as what we used to call a heavy-duty WISE mentor, which meant I took on 5 mentees. And they were the first 5 of about 150 before I finally left here. I found out a whole bunch of things about teaching through WISE. one of the first things that they tell you in education classes is that learning these days should be more student-centered, that we should be in the business of empowering our students. The first time I went with one of my mentees, with Tony Abramson, who was another one of our WISE coordinators, down to the World Trade Center, this became very clear to me, no longer as an idea in an ed class, but as a reality. We went down to the Commodities Exchange, and here we are, two teachers with an 18-year-old. The head of the Commodities Exchange, the head guy, comes out onto the floor of the Commodities Exchange, and the first thing he says is, "Explain to me this program." Now, he was probably thinking that one of the two teachers would step up and talk. We both stepped back and ushered our 18-year-old up, and he spoke for the next 10 minutes eloquently and in detail about his WISE experience. That's student empowerment. That's the idea of training your kids to take on leadership roles, and then, crucial for teachers, stepping aside and letting them do it. Another thing they taught me in my ed classes, in a philosophical kind of way, is that learning is not supposed to be compartmentalized. It's not just supposed to be about my English class and a bell rings, and then the students go off to a math class that had nothing to do with my English class, and then a bell rings and they go to a social studies class that had nothing to do with anything else. It's supposed to be collegial. It's supposed to be, again, students empowered to ask questions, and to ask questions of a whole bunch of people. So I'll never forget sitting in the WISE room with other people who were as committed to the program as I was. Tony Abramson, Mary Mastro, Charles Deal, Nancy Durant, the list could just go on and on. All of these people with their different skills. And I'd be sitting there with my mentee, and all of a sudden I'd start hearing voices. Here's Andy Courtney, and he's saying, "You know, there's an exhibit on in New York that you might really be interested in." And here's Herb Kamenson saying, "You know, there's a bill right now in Congress. You might want to write to your congressional representative in order to get funding for programs like yours." From all over the place were coming these ideas that I had never thought of. And again, as a teacher, it was my job to step back and realize that English wasn't the only thing for kids to learn, and English wasn't the only thing that would impact a really successful project. So I stepped back, and I learned as much as my students learned. In WISE also, we have a saying that in every mentor meeting, your student should teach you 2 new things. Again, teachers have to step back and realize they don't have all the answers, and they don't have all the answers that the kids would find relevant. So I learned all of this from my time as a teacher at Woodlands. That's what it gave me. And I could go on for hours about the programs that successful, world-changing, earth-shattering, consciousness-raising projects that kids had, like Robert's, right? Like Dorian's, like Christina's, like Lori's. Yeah, but instead, I want to talk just a little bit about the spirit of WISE. WISE, for me, that WISE room was an incubator for things to happen. And out of that came all kinds of things way beyond the kids' projects. Trips that you wouldn't even have thought of taking. We started a mock trial team, just for the heck of it, because we had a few kids who were interested in mock trial. I had a phone call a few years later from a kid who said, "You know, I just changed careers." And I remembered how important that mock trial team was back in my senior year. I became a lawyer. I'm now a civil rights lawyer. Out of the blue. Right? We had a theater program, only for WISE seniors. And that theater program included sometimes kids writing their own plays and putting them on and being covered in the New York Times. Again, with the teacher taking the back seat and the students doing what they wanted to do. For a long time, we had a cooperative program with the School for the Deaf, where our students would go over to Fanwood, right up the road, and they would learn to communicate with their deaf cohorts because they had a mutual goal to put on a play. And that's the best way to learn how to communicate. And before long, they were spending weekends at each other's houses, meeting each other's families, going to each other's proms, and developing lifelong friendships. So it was no surprise that when at Gallaudet University, the University for the Deaf down in Washington, D.C., they were having demonstrations where the students were demanding a deaf president for their deaf university. No surprise that the students from Fanwood and the students from Woodlands, who were now fast friends, would say, let's get on a bus and go to Washington, and let's participate in their demonstration. WISE was an intrinsic part of the spirit of this place. And I think it remains that way today. Now, I know things have changed. Back in the 1970s, seniors spent a lot of time sitting around during senior year, counting down the days to the prom and to graduation. Well, now they have APs, and they have IB, and they have the 220 universities that they feel required to apply to now, you know. So they got a lot going on that they didn't have back in the 70s. But I would submit to you that things haven't changed in this sense. That WISE was never just something to keep kids occupied during their senior year. WISE was never just an internship program for kids who wanted to fill out their schedules. WISE is a way of thinking about teaching and about learning. And as such, it remains a vital part of this place and of all the places that have copied the program that was born here 50 years ago. Now I want to end by doing a Vic Leviathan activity. Vic used to love to do this, and he would do it at every opportunity where he saw more than 15 people in front of him. So if it was a wedding, if it was a bar mitzvah, if it was whatever, if he had gotten the opportunity to address a joint session of Congress, he would have done this with the Congress people, right? Raise your hand if you've ever been a WISE student, or you are a WISE student now. Keep your hand up. Raise your hand if you've ever been a WISE mentor. There you go. Some people have two hands up now, right, Lori? Raise your hand if you've ever been the parent of a WISE student. There go more hands. All right? Vic loved this. Look at all those hands. All of them reaching, and all of them in community. All of them part of a WISE experience. And for that experience, multiplied 1,000 times by all of the students across this country, from New York to California, from the inner cities to a Lakota Sioux reservation, the students who have taken part in WISE because a couple of far-reaching, incredibly thoughtful teachers way back 50 years ago thought of it here. Here. All right? Multiply all those raised hands by thousands. That's what WISE is. That's what WISE was, but I insist that is what WISE still is and still can be. And for that, this teacher will always be thankful.
So our next speaker was part of the WISE class of 1990, and her project included an internship at what was then known as the White Plains Public Access TV, and she was mentored by Mr. Andrew Courtney. Today she continues to work in the same field, and she's the director of the White Plains Community Media, and has worked there for 29 years. So we're so grateful to have her here to speak with us about her WISE experience, Ms. Rita Santos.
Because I don't like to do these public talking, but yes, I am class of 1990, and the biggest impact that I had out of WISE was the fact that I was able to work with the other students that did WISE. Part of my project was to videotape other kids at their different internships. And back then, the cameras weren't like these little small things. They were these big VHS cameras, and so I'd be the kid walking around the school with a camera strapped to my shoulder videotaping different kids. And it was a way for me to appreciate what the other students were doing, and it was a way for us to be able to communicate with each other as well. The biggest thing that I got out of WISE was the idea of paying it forward. As Charlene just said, I am now the director of Cable Studio, and so the opportunity was given to me by my then director, who's passed, Fred Strauss, and he gave me the opportunity to step into a position of leadership. He gave me projects that I failed, and he knew that I would mess up, but it gave me a chance to pull myself out of it and to learn from it. And so we've had students over the years that have made mistakes, and I don't yell at them, I make them fix it, figure it out, fix it. I'm not gonna be, no one's always gonna be around to help you to figure it out. So the idea of paying it forward is something that I just thought about this last night. What it was that he taught me, and it's the idea of paying it forward. So I'm hoping to get some more students to come through to WISE. We have a student there now from Westlake, so it's a little bit different when I talk about, when I was in WISE back then. The journal writing and everything. So that's my biggest impact I have was the idea of paying it forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Trustee David Warner, also a great member of our WISE task force, has been very helpful and integral in making this happen. Mr. Warner.
Thank you. What does this say? Why WISE? So I'm going to talk a little bit about Vic. I'm going to talk a little bit about Dr. A. I'm going to then return to my main theme, why WISE? Okay, so as I plow through my 3-page speech that I've carefully prepared here, think about that, because when we get done, there's a TV studio inside this building. And there are so many people with so many great experiences of WISE that are greater and more wonderful than, I'm just the tip of the iceberg, okay? So we're going to want people to go in there and share their experiences, and I want you to answer the question, why WISE? Okay, so here goes the speech. I am David Warner, a member of the Greenburgh CSD Board of Education. I've been a member of the WISE task force here at Woodland since 2009. I've mentored 5 WISE students, participated on several dozen evaluation panels, and my daughter's a WISE graduate. I'd like to say a few words about 2 beloved WISE leaders who passed away recently. Vic Leviathan, Dr. Constantine Andriadis, and about the WISE program. First, Vic Leviathan. Vic Leviathan was born in Poland in 1939. He survived the Holocaust and immigrated to the United States at the age of 9. He grew up, went to college, and became a social studies teacher at the newly opened Woodlands High School in 1961. That's shortly after I was born. Vic was a man of many words. According to his wife, when he first started teaching, he crammed every moment of instructional time in his high school history classes with wall-to-wall college-level historical lecture material. His department head had to convince him that it was important to get feedback from the students to ensure they were participating in the experience and actually learning from it. Vic took this lesson to heart, and over several years, his methods evolved towards student engagement and involvement. He also catapulted into teachers' union leadership. As a community member, he participated in the campaign and vote that merged the Greenburgh 8 school district with the Hartsdale 7, creating the Greenburgh Central School District we have today. In the early 1970s, Vic took a sabbatical year, and he and his wife toured progressive schools throughout the world that emphasized experiential learning. He came back to Woodlands, shared what he had learned with his colleagues, and they created the Woodlands Individualized Senior Experience, or WISE. High school seniors chose their own topics of study, their own mentors, performed research, got out into the world through internships, kept journals of their experiences, and presented what they had learned to an evaluation panel that included both teachers and other WISE students. Along the way, they learned common skills and helped each other with their projects. With a number of variations and technological improvements in record keeping, that basic model has persisted for 50 years. Teachers sometimes changed school districts, and WISE graduates went out into the world and wanted similar programs for their kids in their school districts. WISE grew and spread organically to roughly 100 school districts across the nation. Upon request, Vic and friends would share the basic principles of WISE with district leaders, who would then take the ball and run with it. No two implementations of WISE were identical, so there were coordinator exchange meetings where WISE coordinators and students presented their unique implementations and compared notes. Vic retired from teaching at Woodlands in around 1991 and devoted his time to spreading WISE to other school districts. I met him in the early 2000s. I was a young elementary school parent distributing budget flyers door to door. I spent about 5 minutes telling Vic about the school budget and why he should vote for it. And he spent about 2 hours telling me about WISE. Any conversation with Vic became a tour of Vic's internal editorial library. Vic had 1,000 opinions on 1,000 topics, and he happily shared them with you in an unending stream. I know a guy I've always admired. Have you ever read? You know what really makes me angry? I cannot understand how. You know what's really amazing? The topics would appear to be based on free association. However, after exploring a number of topics, you would realize that you were being nudged in a particular direction. Fortunately, that direction was always wholesome. He was almost completely selfless, as evidenced by the fact that his family didn't even want his name. We put Wise Way instead of Leviathan Way, right? And he had the best interests of students at heart. Vic passed away in August of 2022 due to complications from Parkinson's disease. Second, Dr. Andreatis. Back in 1990, a young art teacher, Constantine Andreatis, came to Woodlands. He taught art, photography, yearbook, advised Greek club, and was a WISE coordinator. I mentored 5 WISE students under his supervision, so I have 5 semesters of seeing Dr. A in action. As his wife describes him, Dr. A was a man of few words, and he was amazingly humble, especially for someone with a doctorate. Regarding his own funeral arrangements, he told his wife, "Just put me in a cigar box and forget about it." Okay. Once I ran into Dr. A while I was out walking on the South County Trailway bicycle path. He was riding a beach coaster at about 3 miles an hour. He said, "Hello, Dave. What are you doing out here?" I said, "Exercising and looking at the scenery." He said, "Me too." And then we didn't talk for half an hour. He just pedaled along beside me, and occasionally one of us would nod or gesture at a tree, or an interesting rock formation, or a bird feeding in the nearby ditch. As a teacher at school, same thing. Dr. A didn't spout wisdom. He was about listening to students, giving them tools, and encouraging them to express themselves on whatever topics were most important to them. In addition to coordinating the WISE program as a whole, Dr. A mentored many students per semester directly, especially students who wanted to create art, photography, or poetry. The art usually had unifying themes, which ranged from the wonder of the world and enthusiasm about learning to getting through a bad romance, or the future and impending adulthood. Dr. A combined a deep sense of empathy with a kind of gruff, no-nonsense attitude that encouraged students to work through their emotions without wallowing in them. After many years mentoring a large number of students, Dr. Andreatis retired in 2017. He passed away in January of 2022. And finally, WISE. All right, so we have Vic Leviathan, co-founder of WISE, original gangster, intellectual academic, and man of many words. And we have Dr. A, intuitive acolyte, who took the WISE like a fish takes to water, a man of few words. If Vic Leviathan and Dr. A were cooking a pot of stew and it needed more salt, Vic would taste the stew and say something like, "You know, in his inaugural address, President Nelson Mandela said, 'Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all.'" Dr. A would taste the stew and say, "Let's add some salt." Here you have 2 people who are as different from each other as it is possible to be. But WISE brought them together. Why WISE? I could say something clever about teaching students agency and community. I could explore the depths of art as a form of reflection. I could say there's nothing more powerful than teaching people to dream and then giving them the tools to make their dreams a reality. And once you understand that, it doesn't matter who you are. Why is WISE still around after 50 years, when most programs come and go like fashionable restaurants in a 5 to 10 year cycle? Why WISE? I could say WISE is the place where knowledge flourishes and minds blossom, and then break that down into 3 bullet points, bottle it, and sell it. Why WISE? But I'm not here to answer the question, I'm here to ask it. There are people here with greater knowledge and experience of WISE than I will ever possess. Once all the speeches at the microphone are over and you're sharing your stories with one another and having your thoughts recorded for posterity at the TV studio inside, please include a sentence or two on the appeal and longevity of the program. Please answer the question, why WISE? Thank you.
So our event will culminate with a ribbon cutting for the tree and the plaque. You know, we chose this spot, there were some infrastructural issues as well, but we chose this spot so, you know, Dr. A was an avid lover of music, and as was Vic. So we chose this spot because of where the band room is in music. So in the afterlife, wherever anyone goes, they can listen to that in peace. It is the 50th anniversary. What a magical place that Woodlands is. People don't necessarily realize it, and we don't do a good job of advertising it either. You know, this is a place where segregation more or less in the school system ended. This is a place that WISE started. This is a place where we're leading not only the other districts, but the world in SEL research. When COVID happened, we led the way there. So we continue to lead the way. And although WISE was a little bit battered through COVID, this is the time to show our rebirth, especially the 50th anniversary, and how we'll go on not to just be a national program, but hopefully someday an international one. We really have to thank all the people that helped us and supported us along the way, the task force, alum, teachers, administration, but especially there's one person in particular that has been the backbone and the brains of this organization for some long time, Elizabeth Huber. If we could get a round of applause for her, that would be great. I know she's embarrassed right now, but she never gets the credit that is due. So Elizabeth, we are very thankful for your work year in and year out. So we'll culminate with the ribbon cutting.
Chantel Lewis actually helped to write the inscription on the marker, so we thought it fitting that she cut the ribbon. And do you want to read what it says?
Hi. Oh my gosh. Hi. Thank you for coming for the 50th anniversary of WISE, and I was coming to read the plaque and cut the ribbon. The plaque states where mind flourishes and knowledge blossoms, and you have to make sure. Where knowledge flourishes and mind blossom, and I chose that because this is a cherry blossom tree, and I think that it's fitting for WISE to have each individual path grow and develop for each individual student to have their passions come alive in this program. So, yeah, thank you.
So thank you everybody for coming. If you walk around here, we're gonna go through the side entrance, and then, or if you want to go through the front, there's refreshments, and if you go into the TV studio, you can do a little testimonial about your experience with WISE and share your thoughts. Yes. So get refreshments first.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Hoger. I'm a parent in the Greenburgh Central 7 School District. My children graduated class of 2009, my daughter Katerina, class of 2010, my son Lars Hoger, and class of 2013, my son Johan Hoger. My daughter Katerina and my son Lars both participated in the WISE program, and my daughter was not able to take part in the memorial that took place for Dr. Andriatis and Mr. Leviathan, but she did write a couple of short pieces in honor of them. So I'll start with Dr. A. Dr. A exuded happiness and calm to his students. He always showed us the neat occurrences he could find. whether with pinhole cameras or the wonders of dollar store finds. Little did I know that some of the skills I learned from Dr. A would become useful years later. Photoshop, sourcing materials for art projects economically, and putting a positive spin on experiences. Dr. A led the WISE program while I was at Woodlands, and I was happy to have experienced the curriculum he put together for us. I was sorry to hear of Dr. A's passing, but was glad to be one of the many students he interacted with regularly. I hope we as students introduced as much joy into his life as he brought into ours. Katerina Holger, class of 2009, Whitlands High School. That was for Dr. A. She also, Katerina, wrote for Mr. Leviathan as well. Mr. Leviathan was a figure I heard about often as a student, but did not truly interact with. It is true that he led the WISE program during my time at Woodlands. However, as an ambitious and high-achieving student, I had a full schedule and never spent time in the WISE room, even as I completed the wonderful program he and Andrew Courtney founded. I ran into Mr. Leviathan often at local band concerts. His son Danny and grandson Sam were bandmates of mine in different bands. Mr. Leviathan and his wife Roz would come to support the concerts, and when I ran into them in the audience, we would chat. I heard updates of what was happening in the WISE program or in Greenburgh. I listened to small anecdotes about past travels and experiences. I learned about different non-traditional experiences they had, such as time spent raising a family in India, and my worldview was broadened with each conversation. It was an honor to be gifted with stories from the Leviathans. I was sorry to hear of Mr. Leviathan's passing, but happy to have met someone who had lived such a full life and was so happy to share it. Katerina Holger, Whitlands High School, class of 2009. And I would just like to mention, during the tree ceremony, the question asked was, why WISE? By David Warner. I had the privilege of working in the WISE program as a parent coordinator, along with Miss Diane Rivera, and as such, we had the opportunity to do fundraising, furniture acquisition for the WISE program, making the space for WISE safe for our students, or for the students, and also act as mentors during the WISE season, and much more. It was easy to work with Dr. A as one parent working with another parent. The students, it was just so comforting to see how easily the students felt trust in sharing concerns with them, and how he just connected with both the parents and the students, and how the program in general contributed to the greater good of the Greenburgh community. And so in asking that question, why WISE, I would say that participating in WISE gave students the opportunity to develop into responsibly independent and effectively interdependent individuals who can eventually grow into positive role models and global leaders. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Lewis, and I participated in the WISE program in 1979. And the question is, why WISE? So, WISE was and is a very, very unique program. And back in those days, I'm just so happy to have been blessed to be in a community where there was a Vic Leviathan and Andy Courtney, and teachers that were so progressive, because again, during the 70s, there was a lot of unrest in this country. When I was young, growing up in the early 70s, we had just come off of we were in the throes of the civil rights movement, actually, and there was a lot of testing going on and experiments going on in terms of racial integration and so on. And this district was one of the districts that was an experiment in integration. Now, in the 60s, there was a lot of strife in the community about this actual district being put together, like busing black kids into this Woodlands High School right here in this community. But the interesting thing was, because of that, we got a group of teachers who were progressive. They had a real desire to push past all of this stuff that was going on and really educate kids. And then when Mr. Leviathan came in with this incredible concept called WISE, we were the recipients. Myself and thousands of other kids now have been the recipients of this wonderful program. So my experience personally was back then and now is so interesting because my perspective is different. Back then, the program was a way for me to get out of my English and my social studies class, my science and my math class, and do this other thing. And I was a senior at that time, so I didn't have to come to school until the afternoon part of the day. So that was great for me. And then before I graduated, I didn't have to come to school at all. I was just basically doing WISE. So for me, this was like, wow, this is great, man. I don't have to come to school and this and that and this and that. But what I didn't understand that I understand now was the discipline that I was getting and the ability. It was being ingrained in me, entrepreneurship and time management and putting together not only what they thought I should be learning, but I had to take some stock in what I was learning myself. There was a journal process, so it kept us accountable. We had to do our gym, so we had to document all of that stuff. So we were writing, we were doing time management. We had to show up at our internships on time, so that taught us how to be responsible. And the program just ingrained so many of these things in me that I didn't even realize that even till today I practice in my life. And that was some odd, 40, 50 years, ago. So I'm telling you, WISE is just a monument. It was and is an incredibly monumental, innovative, incredible program that is education on steroids. Well, I should say this. Education is one thing, but as in its acronym, WISE is where you get wisdom. Wisdom begins where education ends. Now, let me just explain that. There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of formal education, but they have loads and loads and loads of wisdom. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of formal education, but don't have a lot of wisdom. So wise, to me, means wisdom, which was imparted in us in that Woodlands individualized study experience. So I'm just grateful to have been a part of that program. And I thank you to Mr. Leviathan, who is no longer with us. And I mean, he lived and breathed wise. That brother was he showed us dedication to a cause. And when I mean dedication, this guy was dedicated to this cause. And the cause of WISE was to try to give as many kids as he possibly could that experience. So I'm grateful to Mr. Leviathan. I'm grateful to Mr. Courtney because he was my mentor. He got me into photography, and I'm still doing that in my career today. And I'm gonna be able to retire on what I've done in my career in terms of photography. So I'm extremely, extremely, extremely grateful to have been a part of the WISE program. So thank you.
I think my response to the question, why WISE, is really that for me, WISE is a bridge. It's a bridge between high school and college and adulthood. Because, you know, in K through 12, much of the curriculum is prescribed, and that's not a bad thing because there's so much knowledge that needs to be imparted. But in WISE, the students not only have to take responsibility for learning, which I hope that they learn by the time they're in high school, but they have to take responsibility for what they are going to learn. And that's a big shift. They have to research what they're going to do. They have to find the resources. They have to present what they're doing. And I think that's all really a great preparation for adulthood and college. I think that the components of the whole WISE experience are really important too. There's the journaling, the opportunity to reflect and to document the successes and the failures of the journey. And in addition, there's also the current events piece of it. I think that as students grow older, as we become adults, then they really need to understand what's going on in the world, and having the opportunity to discuss it and learn how to deal with it is really an important piece. Even the physical education piece is important. I mean, there's no gym class when you're in adulthood except if you pay for it. So you have to learn, how are you going to take care of your body? How are you going to take care of your mind? The relationship that develops between a mentor and a mentee. I've had many, many mentees over the years, and I think that it's a wonderful opportunity for the student to have a one-on-one with a caring adult. It's also very enriching for the adults to have an opportunity to learn from students what are their hopes and dreams, what do they want to accomplish, where do they see themselves in the world. Cut for a minute? Okay, you don't care, I don't have to cut, I can keep on going. I think that as we look back on this 50th anniversary of WISE here in Greenburgh, I think it's clearly a program that needs to continue. I feel that it needs to be a program that should be emulated in other school districts as well.
And I graduated from Woodlands High School in 1978. Feels weird to say that, I feel very old, but I just want to mention that WISE changed my life. Why WISE? I was a pretty good student, but I just didn't have direction. I wanted to get interested in journal. I want to find out about journalism. So I talked to Vic Leviathan and Andy Courtney, who were legendary teachers at Woodlands. And I told them I just want to learn about reporting. I want to do some reporting. I ended up writing a story for the New York Times my senior year. Ended up going to college and studying journalism after that. Becoming a journalist, I lived in Mexico City. I lived in Bogota, Colombia. I lived in Rio de Janeiro as a journalist. It's all because of WISE. I like to say that my WISE project lasted 42 years. Until finally pay cuts drove me out of my beloved profession, journalism. Why WISE? It just was a magical experience. I got mentoring. I went into New York City. I went to New York Times and interviewed people. I just had this incredible experience that, as I said, led to a career, and I'm grateful for WISE. And later I served on the board of WISE Services so that we could tell other schools about WISE. So anybody who's interested in WISE, we have to keep it going. Schools have become boring, they become dull, they become inward looking, and WISE pushed us to get out in the community. WISE pushed us to learn from different people of different backgrounds, and I'm so grateful for that experience. If you want more information, I've actually written about WISE. Look at www.davemarcus.com and you'll see some stories I've written about why WISE changed my life.
Hi, I'm Shayna Weir, and I graduated from the class of 2012. Why WISE? WISE gave me the opportunity to learn about being reflective and also adaptable. My WISE project, I was training seeing eye dogs for people with seeing issues, and I actually got fired from that internship in the middle of my project, so I was forced to change my project. I learned a lot of important lessons from that I took into my teaching career now, so now I get to be back at Woodlands and to be a WISE mentor. So why WISE? Teaches a lot of valuable lessons in life.
My name is Philip Chonigman. I'm with the class of 81, and I had participated in my WISE project in my senior year, of course, and it was something that brought me on a tangent that changed my life forever. I started the project as an intern in the Westchester County Legislature, learning about government processes, which I'd always had an interest in. And it just so happened in that year of 1981 that they were embarking on doing some redistricting of the legislative boundaries. And so I learned all about legislative redistricting through the WISE project. That was what the focus of my project was. Little did I know that that would lead me on a path that many years later would bring me back to redistricting of the Westchester County Legislature in the year 2000, and then on to help other counties and towns and cities around New York State, and finally landed me in a position where I am now. Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who represents this area, tapped me to be the co-executive director of the New York State Legislative Task Force on Demographic Analysis and Reapportionment, where I review data that comes in from the Census Bureau, put together packages of information to assist the legislature in their work, and all of that came from my participation in the WISE project back in 1981. So full circle, why WISE? Because you never know where your path is going to take you, and you got to keep your mind open and participate and do things, and WISE puts you on a path that you may find is very beneficial to you.
Jamal Thomas, one of the Greenburgh school board members here, and I graduated in 1996. I was a part of the WISE program, which was an incredible experience. It was my first opportunity where I didn't have to come to school every day. I kind of got to do something else, and I wound up going down to the city. I actually had 3 separate internships, 2 of them in music, 1 of them in fashion, Penalty Recordings, Spoiled Rotten Recordings, and Mecca USA. And I just got to mix it up in the music industry. I chose not to necessarily pursue that in the future, but it did give me an understanding that I did want to be a part of that hustle and bustle of New York City. A lot of my friends did follow what they did in WISE. My younger brother does what he did in WISE. It really is an incredible program. WISE gave me the ability to explore, think about the types of things that I actually wanted to do, not what I was told I had to do via the school, and it did the same thing for so many people. I think that is what all of school should be like.
Hi, I'm David Weinstein, and I am Woodlands class of 1990, which is when I did my WISE project. Together with a couple of friends, we had a band, we wrote music, performed, recorded a song, and I did the WISE drama production with the New York School for the Deaf, which is also where I developed an interest for sign language that I pursued a little bit and even substitute taught at School for the Deaf for a while, a couple of years later. And then I came back to Woodlands to teach art and English and be a WISE mentor. I worked as the office manager for the WISE program for a year and went on into education now as a school committee member where I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and before that teaching in a number of different places. And always that spirit of WISE has animated my commitments in education around focusing on students, around helping individual students figure out who they are, what they want to be, and support them to get there and to develop the skills that they need and the ways of thinking and to be able to make mistakes and have some support network there before you're off in a situation where you might not have that. It's just I was talking to a current student and about how, for me, WISE was just like a highlight of not only my K through 12 education, but really my college and graduate school education. And it continues to have that kind of impact for me. And of course, the personal relationships. And on a day where we're honoring WISE, but also honoring Vic Leviathan and Constantine Andreatis, that means a lot to me too. Vic was my WISE mentor and somebody who, really pushed me and supported me as a mentor and as a teacher. And when I taught at Woodlands, I had a chance to be a colleague with Constantine Andreatis, and just both of them beautiful human beings. So, Woodlands and WISE and Greenburgh are always a huge part of who I am. And I'm just so grateful I had that opportunity.
My name is Charles Deal. I taught at Woodlands High School from the fall of 1983 until I retired from teaching in June of 2004. I worked with the WISE program basically from the moment I walked in to Woodlands as a new teacher. Tony Abramson was an English teacher, and I was joining the English department. And Tony Abramson was one of the WISE coordinators, along with Vic Leviathan at the time. And Tony, besides welcoming me into the English department, suggested that WISE was the kind of program that I also would be interested in, and got me involved from the very beginning, of my time at Woodlands, in mentoring students and meeting with the WISE task force and being involved with WISE. I was invited to talk about why WISE. There are a lot of things one can say about that. The name WISE was always something that we held to be important because it so clearly defined what the program was. The individualization, the individualized senior, that it was for the graduating seniors, and experience, the whole thing of experiential programs. I taught at several schools before I came to Woodlands, and I never found quite the right fit until I came here. And one of the big reasons was because it was Woodlands, it was Greenburgh 7 that taught me about community, that taught me about the way community is supposed to work with a public school. If you think about what's going on in much of the country today, we have a situation where much of the parent community is in a war with much of the faculty and the administration of the schools. We have this kind of controversy, they're at each other's throats over what's going to happen, the direction that the academics are going to take, the direction that the social aspects of the school are going to take. And that is, to my way of thinking, that's nearly tragic. And when you compare it to the way Woodlands, to the way Greenburgh 7 worked, and the prototypical demonstration of that was the WISE task force. The WISE task force that was composed of the faculty and the parents and the students, all with an equal voice in operating the program, in saying how things should be done, and that it gave a sense of community that I would not have learned any other place any other way, any other time, if I had not been fortunate enough to come to Greenburgh 7 and Woodlands High School and have the last 20 years of my public school teaching career be here. And it made my work life and my regular life much of what it ultimately was.
Hi everyone, my name is Lloyd Newland. I live in Greenburgh for about 48 years. I was a member of Greenburgh School Board for 20 years. I served as the board president for 8 of those years. All my children attended Greenburgh Central 7 from K to high school. They all graduated, went to college, and all doing well. I'd also like to talk about WISE. WISE was a very, and still is, a valuable program for all our children. It helps the kids to search out what they want to do after school because of the enrichment programs and opportunities, the apprenticeship that it provides them. Specifically, my son, who graduated in the late 80s, was a very good art student and very much interested in art. And he got involved in the WISE program. And from then, he also learned graphic arts while he was doing his art projects. And after he graduated, he went on to college, and having graphic arts in his mind, he pursued that, and today, that's his career. He has his own business. He lives in Connecticut, working for large firms in New York City, and this was the result of the mentorship that he did in WISE. So it's an excellent program. I remember I was on the board. The late Vic, God rest his soul, he used to lobby me and make sure, Mr. Newland, make sure when you guys doing your budget and all that sort of stuff, you remember WISE. And he didn't have to tell me why too many times. So I recommend this to all our kids, no matter what their they want to do after they leave school. It is a good place to start and to get some type of mentorship. So I think that WISE did a fantastic thing for our children, and nobody would ever believe that it was born here in Greenburgh Central 7. And now it's almost global. So I just like to thank Vic and his family, even though he's not with us anymore. And hopefully we'll continue this good, long tradition. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dave Green. I worked here at Woodlands High School from 1986 through 1990. I was a member of the WISE team. Heavy-duty mentors is what we used to call them then, and in the WISE room, when it was opened up as a double room, was an office that I shared with the likes of Vic Leviathan and Herb and Charles Deal and Ms. Abramson and John McLean, and we used to all share the space. We shared the kids, we shared the ideas, very much the way John talked about it in his speech earlier. I can't even remember how many kids I mentored over the course of those 4 years. Had to be at least 20 to 25 directly, but because of the way we worked in that room, it had to be closer to 100 because of the way we shared all of our ideas. Okay, to answer the question, why WISE? To learn how to learn, and to learn how to learn to live a better life. To me, that's what WISE is all about. And it was a pleasure to help so many kids do that. Here, and after I left here, starting a program at Scarsdale High School and working for WISE Services to start programs in dozens of other schools across the country. So it's a pleasure for me to make that my WISE project. That's why WISE.
My name is Gwen Court. I've been a resident of Greenburgh for over 50 years. And both my children attended the Greenburgh Central Schools from K through high school. I want to take the I'm glad that you've given me the opportunity to speak in the absence of two young men who wish they would have been here, Matthew Jackson and my son, Robert Court. Matthew and Robert, as part of a WISE project, wrote a play called Reverse that could only have been possible in a district such as ours. The basic theme of the play was to ask others to step aside and choose the role of being in other words, it was reverse discrimination, to experience what discrimination was like. And it speaks volumes to our town that parents would permit that. I'm sorry that neither is here, and they would have been able to tell you all that went into the writing. Of course, they had a lot of help from both Mr. Leviathan and, of course, their English teacher. Because of what Matthew did, Robert felt that he too needed to write a play, and his was called 20th Century Slave, which again was featured here, and they went on to, I think Mercy College asked them to perform there. Both these plays got acknowledgement from at the state level, and I just wish that, and perhaps I'd look and ask the young men to find some artifacts that perhaps the school might want to keep as a part of its history. Matthew is well known. He is now in Hollywood as a director. Robert has acquired all these skills of interpersonal skills that his jobs lead him into the field of, he does not only pharmaceuticals, but teaches others how to interface with people. Thank you for the opportunity to speak ever so briefly on their behalf, and my hope is that they will, in their own words, convey what WISE project meant to them.